Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for the Expanse Season 4 Episode 9, Saeculum. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of the Expanse, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for the Expanse up to Season 4 Episode 9. If you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. However, if you have yet to see the finale of Season 4 Episode 10, not to worry, this video will contain no spoilers for that episode as I have not seen it yet. So, so this was a pretty powerful episode, a pretty damn good episode, if I do say so myself. So it's taking place entirely on Illis, so it's a lot more focused, and I think that was a wise choice, because I think the stories in both, because we do have two different storylines. We have the Rocinante in orbit, and we have Holden and all the people on the planet, and both storylines were really just driving forward. They were really adrenaline fed, really edge of your seat stuff. So I think to go back to Alpha Sorella having a political meeting on her election would have killed the momentum of this episode. Even seeing a drummer moping about on Medina or whatever, that would have killed the momentum. This was a very suspenseful, high-octane episode that I think worked really well and was really well structured in that regard. In fact, a lot of things, because I've read the books, a lot of things that happen in this episode, I was expecting to see in the finale. A lot of things was pretty much, they're doing the final end of Book 4, so I was expecting it all this stuff to be in the finale, to be perfectly honest. When I saw all this happening, I was like, wait, did I skip an episode? And I looked at it. No, this is episode 9. So it seems like the finale is just going to be basically an epilogue. It's got to tie up the other storylines. The drummer's pretty much tied up. They could do an epilogue for that, but they need to tie up Bobby Draper's storyline. They need to tie up Bobby Sorella's, I guess. And of course, this episode ends on a cliffhanger, and they need to resolve it. But for the most part, it seems like it's going to be pretty much just an epilogue. But anyway, this episode, it really fucking worked. Now, they did really condense a lot from the books. This final sequence was a lot longer in the books, but unlike the Season 3 finale, which really bothered me because they condensed the fuck out of that, and I still maintain to this day with all my might that was a bad adaptation. Even though it was a decent episode, it was a bad adaptation. This, however, I don't mind. I think it actually works, trimming the fat a bit. Of course, they didn't try to cram half a book into 2 episodes. There's that. So, it's definitely nowhere near as bad, and I actually think it works in its favor. I think it's a lot more sort of punchy and gets to the point of what's going on. As I said, this episode was perfectly paced to be a high-octane edge of your seat, a very effective thrill ride. So we start with the Miller thing. I forgot to mention that in my review for the last episode before this, where it ends with Miller yelling and freaking out, and I honestly had no idea what the hell that was about. And so here, and I also hadn't really talked about these freaky scenes that we get, these interlude type scenes where we see from Miller's perspective, and it's really artistically done. These are great scenes, and of course they're really abstract. They don't really make much sense, but they finally sort of explain it in this episode as Miller sort of fighting off a protomolecule version of Miller. Basically, he refers to as Miller, a protomolecule in a Miller suit. But there's the actual Miller. And so they distinguished him in this episode by showing Miller without a hat. And saying, so Miller without a hat is actually Miller, but if he's wearing a hat, he's usually just saying the plain old stuff hey, we have an investigation. That's the protomolecule in the Miller suit. Now, some people might infer that means that all of Miller's appearances before this was the protomolecule in the Miller suit, but I would fight against that. I would actually say it's probably the other way around, that most of the time it was actually Miller, particularly in season 3, because we had that scene in season 3 where Miller had to prove himself to Holden and like tell the story of Julie Mao and how they hold hands before he died. Like, that was definitely Miller. That was definitely not the protomolecule in the Miller suit. I think they make it clear in this episode for the betrayal of the protomolecule in the Miller suit that it doesn't sound like a normal human being. It just says, hey, there's a crime scene, blah, blah. So you could infer scenes we got with Miller when he's saying shit like that was the protomolecule in the Miller suit. But the scenes where I think most of season 3, particularly that part they were at the station when Miller's relating to Julie Mao, that was definitely Miller. So this, I don't for a second think this is the first time we see Miller. And like, I think they call back to the whole thing about tasting rain. I wonder what rain tastes like from the first episode, and I think it's very clear that was switching between Miller, because that was actually Miller saying, I wonder what rain tastes like, but then he repeats himself and be like, hey, I need a ride, blah, blah, blah. That was the protomolecule taking over. So it kind of happened sort of intermittently, whereas in this episode it's more like it's portrayed as like a fight for control over this image, which yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It is interesting. I wasn't really expecting that. But it's definitely interesting. And then, of course, he tells Holden to go off and he thinks that he found what killed the protomolecule creators, and he thinks he can use it to turn all the shit off, which will basically save everyone who's about to die. So Holden goes off on an adventure. I'm going on an adventure, and he just jumps down a literal rabbit hole and just flies straight through. And of course, Elvie catches up to him, and he's like, no, I need to go alone because Miller doesn't talk to me when someone else is around, and I need them to talk to me. So sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But then, of course, Mercury gets it out of Elvie what Holden is up to, so he goes off after Holden. He and Wade go off after Holden, and then Amos finds out from Elvie. I love how he just bullies that guard who's guarding Elvie. He's like, you can't talk to her. He just takes his gun away. How about now? Gotta love Amos. You got to love Amos. And then, of course, they Elvie takes him, and they go fall down the rabbit hole and chase after Holden. And then we have this confrontation with Wade and Amos, and this is really sad. This is a really sad thing where Wade refuses to back down. She begs Amos to just take the money and run, to go kill Holden together and live off happily ever after. And Amos knows better. He knows that's a pipe dream, and he knows what Mercury's doing is wrong. And I do wonder if this is character growth. If Amos, like, say, before season 1, or even during season 1, might have just taken the money and run. I mean, he threatened to kill Holden in season 1. I think Amos has actually grown, because they make it clear that Amos has no moral compass of his own, that he uses people like Holden and Naomi for his guiding compass, but I think he does have one of his own now. I think all his time with Holden has worn off on him to the point where he's able to judge, I'm not just going to kill my friend, especially the way they bonded in the last episode, but he also really cares for Wade. You can see the hurt on his face. It's like, don't make me kill you. That was a really powerful scene. And she says, no, I'm going to stop you. And so he kills her. It's really sad. It does make you sort of, as I just said before, you got to love Amos, but here it makes you kind of doubt him. But he is ultimately doing the right thing. He's saving his friend's life and doing the right thing, basically saving everyone on the planet's life. And you do have to, and then Mercury tries to spin it to be like, Amos is an evil killer because he just killed his lover. He killed Wade. And he's kind of spinning it that way, kind of leaving out the part where Wade wanted him to kill Holden, kill the best friend, which would probably result in the deaths of everyone there. So he left that part out of it conveniently. So I don't think Amos is the cold-blooded killer, but it's definitely a hard decision, and so it was a really powerful scene. And of course, Amos gets shot, and Mercury, by the way, this bastion of moral good, he was using Way as a distraction so he could jump Amos and shoot him in the back from surprise. So Mercury is the lowest of the low. They make that very clear. And then sticking with the old Western theme, we get the old quick draw Western standoff draw. And yeah, and I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the quick draw thing, but this was interesting enough. Of course, Mercury tries to blabber on about his, civilizations, blah, 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 come back when they make a post office, and Holden's just not having that bullshit and shoots him. So, yeah, that was cool. And then the Miller bot. That was really cool shit, because Holden finds the weird glowy bally thingy in the middle of the room, and they're like, well, that's probably what killed the Protomolecule creators. I think that's a good guess. I think that's a good guess, too. And Miller says he needs to get into physical form and enter it. And so he goes into this Miller bot thingy. But by the time he wants Holden to guide him, but Holden's off dealing with Mercury, so Elvie's there, and she has to guide him. And it's so cool getting the interactions between Elvie and this weird, like, creature thingy with like all these different like platform and talking to Elvie, and she's like, what the hell is that? And then explains, oh, you're Holden's ghost, you're Miller. He's like, yeah, that's me. And just the way he's being so nonchalant Millerish with her was absolutely amazing. And I love that. And eventually, they said he was waking up everything in the protomolecule, and so obviously the protomolecule devices are still trying to fight him off. So you have another like monstery looking thing that just snacks up and beats the shit out of him, and destroys him a lot. And he comes back and he's like, "Oh, that didn't go as well. That didn't go very well." And then he's too destroyed to move, so Elvie has to literally drag him into the baldy thingy, and that's where we get our cliffhanger. So yeah, that was actually pretty damn exciting, if I do say so myself. So we also get a storyline in orbit. They foreshadowed. Mercury called up the Edward Israel and was like, "Hey, you know that shuttle we have? Turn it into a giant bomb." And that's Chekhov's bomb. Like, you're not going to show that scene unless it's going to come into play. And of course, it comes into play when he hears that the Rosinante is trying to tow the Baba Bucola out of orbit. Now remember, the Baba Bucola has the lithium, I think it's lithium, but the precious minerals that Mercury does not want the Belters to sell. He doesn't want them to profit off. So he wants that ship destroyed. He doesn't want that ship to survive. So when he sees the Rosinante or hears that the Rosinante is trying to save it, he's fucking sick of Holden too, wants to kill him. So let's just two birds, one stone. Take the bomb, the shuttle bomb, and just blow up the Rosie, and that will also kill the Baba Bucola. And, of course, it doesn't quite work because Alex shoots it down before it gets there, but it totally fucks up their plan. And you get this amazing sequence where Lucia just goes flying into space and Naomi has to, head out. I think this is a great Naomi moment in the show. And this is something I think the show, I was just thinking, does a lot better in the books. It uses characters, particularly Naomi, a lot better and gives her some strong moments. That was a great Naomi moment. She had to go flying out to save Lucia. So yeah, that was pretty damn exciting as well. So overall, I'd say this is a good episode. It was well structured, really punchy, put together. So my rating for this episode, what's this episode called again? Saeculum, yes. My rating for Saeculum out of 10, I'm actually going to give this a 10, the best. I was going back and forth between 10 and 9, and I couldn't decide. Now, I'm going to give this episode the benefit of the doubt, because I haven't dealt out any 10s this season yet. So, any episode deserves a 10 this season. It's this one. But it's a low 10. It's not a perfect 10. It's teetering closer to a 9. But I'm going to give it a 10. Push it. It just makes it up there, because it's so perfectly paced, as I said, and it's so edge of your seat. You get powerful, heartfelt moments where, like, Amos shot way. You got that whole ending scene where Elvie's talking to the Miller bot and has to, like, drag it towards this giant thing in the middle. Like, this is some of the great sci-fi that the Expanse does really well. So yeah, I am gonna say definitely a 10 for this episode. So anyway, that is it for my review of Saeculum. And I will be back shortly for my book to show comparison for this episode. And then next week, I will finally finish up my coverage of the Expanse by talking about the finale, Cibola Burn, named after the book, has all season finales in the Expanse are. So be sure to check that out. Also check out my channels and cover many other shows like Star Trek, Picard, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.